you. Hi, is your name Bia? It says in your BEA. Nice to meet you, Asher. Hi. Hi again, Karen, David, Debbie. Hi, Ma. Hi, Malka Gabriel, Sylvia, and Yosef, and Rav Yoshua. Okay, we'll start with a little music, even though I am aware that music does not come out so well through Zoom. So I'm just going to play a little bit of a guitar, not that much. Perhaps next meeting we can meet through YouTube, and then the music sounds better. The problem is in YouTube you can't participate. So we'll do one song or two. You know, until a few weeks ago, we davened for Mashiach, and we really needed Mashiach. But only since this whole Mishugas, the whole Corona thing began, did we really realize how badly we need Mashiach. Like, we needed him also a month ago. But, I mean, you know, Gevalt, we need him now more than ever. So this is from the davening of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Slichot. V'haviotim el har kodshi, v'simachtim bevet tfilati, olotehem v'zivchehem leratzon al mizbechi, ki beiti bet tfilah yikareh lechol ha'amim. That we daven for the day that the third Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, and it becomes a house of prayer for all the world, for Am Yisrael and for all the world at large. A place for everybody to come and pour out their hearts and connect to Hashem, connect to the Creator. V'havi oitim el ha-kodshi v'simawachtim beveit tefilati v'havi oitim el ha-kodshi v'simawachtim beveit tefilati Hey oloteihem v'zivcheihem Oy leratzon al mizbechi Oy ki beweiti Oy beit tefilah Oy yikareh Kol ha'amim Dri ayam Dri dai dam Dri ayam Dri da dam Dri dai dam Dri ayam Dri dai dam ahoy V'havi oisim el ha-kodshi v'simawachtim beveit tefilati Dri-da-da-dam, ay-ay-yam, dri-da-da-da-dam, dri-da-da-da-da-dam, dri-ay-ay-ay-yam. Hey, oloteyem, oy b'zivcheyem, oy leratzon, al mizbechi oy ki beweisi oy beis tefilah oy yikareh lechol ha'amim dri ayam dri da dam Dri dai dam, ayam, dri dai dam. Dee-dee-ding-ding, ay-ay-yam. Dee-dee-da-da-da-dam. Dee-dee-da-dam, ay-ay-yam. Oh, hi. Should mamish be tonight or tomorrow at the latest. Everybody should come back to Yerushalayim to the third Beit HaMikdash. We're learning tonight, of course, for the Refuah Shlema, for the complete and speedy recovery of anybody that needs a healing all over the world, amongst Am Yisrael, and amongst all nations in the world. Anybody that needs a healing, you're of course welcome, please, to say any names right now. Wherever it is you're sitting, any names of people that you know that are sick, people that might have corona or other sicknesses. I'm just going to say a few names. Shlomo ben Kraga, Yonatan ben Malka. And a healing for the world, We're also learning Leilui Nishmat, for the Neshamot, for the souls, of course, of Malkiel Natan ben Ezra. And we're learning for Debbie's mother, Debbie Brown's mother, Leah Gittel Bas Chaim Ruven. Her neshama should have a huge, huge aliyah. She should soar higher and higher. We're also learning for the neshama of Malka Gavriel's aunt, who took off just a few days ago. She was niftar. Her name is Yentel Ann Bas Lavi. Yentel Ann Bat Lavi. She was living in England, and she moved on. She moved up to Hashem a few days ago. So we're also learning for her neshama. And of course, how could we not? We're also learning for the 6 million neshamot of our brothers and sisters who were murdered in the Holocaust. And we have the unbelievable schut to learn Torah in Eretz Yisrael as free people. So every Torah, every breath that we take is mamish in their honor, in their memory, for the neshamot of all those Jews who are not with us anymore, all the 6 million. Hashem Yikom Damam. I heard a beautiful, before we start the official learning, I heard a beautiful, sweet story just yesterday from a recording that Rav Weinberger, who's the Rav in Woodmere, Rav Moshe Weinberger of the Eish Kodesh Shul, the Eish Kodesh Beit Knesset and community. So he shared a beautiful story which I never heard before about the Vorka Rebbe. There was this couple, this is about 200 years ago. There was a couple that were blessed with kids, Baruch Hashem. They had a number of children. But at one point, one of their children became very ill, became very, very sick. And things, mamish, got really bad. They could really feel the angel of death at their doorstep. So the wife, the mother, asked her husband to go to the Vorka Rebbe and ask him for a bracha, for some salvation. So the husband didn't really believe in Rebbes. He believed in doctors, and they of course got whatever medical care they could get at the time. But he did believe in his wife. So even though he didn't believe in Rebbes, he went to see the Vorka Rebbe. So he got to the Vorka Rebbe and he stood in line. He was eventually let into the Vorka Rebbe, and he gave the Vorka Rebbe a little, it's called a pan, pei nun, which is an abbreviation for pidyon nefesh, which means a redemption for the person's soul. So all you do when people back then, and also nowadays, some people do that, they write the name of the person that they're asking the Rebbe, the rabbi, the righteous person, the tzaddik, the tzaddikah, to daven for, to pray for. So he wrote his child's name on the paper and gave it to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe looked at the paper, the Vorka Rebbe looked at the paper, and he closed his eyes. And he went up to wherever he went up. And after a few long minutes of meditating and focusing on whatever it was he was focusing on, he turned back to the father and he said, "I'm very sorry. I can't help you. All the gates are closed and there's nothing I can do for your son. I'm real sorry." So their father said, "My wife told me that you can do miracles and you can and bring salvation to people. What do you mean? So the Vorka Rebbe said, sometimes I'm able to, but I'm sorry. It's the gates are closed for you, for your son. I can't help you. Goodbye. So the father got up and left. He went out of the Vorka Rebbe's house. He got himself together. He was naturally, we should never know from this, but he was naturally very broken. And he got onto the wagon to start going home. A moment before the horses were about to take off on his journey back home, of course, somewhat let down by the Rebbe, he looks back and he sees the Rebbe is running after him. And the Rebbe catches up to him and catches hold of him, of his shoulders and his hand. And he says to him, I'm so sorry that I couldn't help you. And the father says to him, it's fine. You're not God. I know that. So the Rebbe said, that's true. I'm not God and I can't help you. But I'm very sorry that when I told you I couldn't help you a few minutes ago, that I didn't cry with you. So the Vorka Rebbe held his hand and he cried a little bit with him and he hugged him and the two of them cried on each other's shoulders. The Vorka Rebbe said, I'm so sorry that I can't help you. And I'm so sorry that the gates are closed for you. And the two of them cried on each other's shoulders. After a few moments of that, they said goodbye to each other. The father got on his wagon and he journeyed back home. Eventually, when he got back home, he expected, of course, to get home and to see his broken family, Lo Aleinu. We should never know. But before he got home, his wife and his children were running towards him and they're all happy. And turns out his son got better. So his wife asked him, what bracha did the Rebbe give you? It's amazing. I told you, the Rebbe's a miracle worker. So he said, well, the truth is he didn't give me much of a bracha. But when exactly did our son start getting better? And his wife thought about it and she tried to calculate backwards. And it turns out on that exact moment that the Rebbe and the father cried on each other's shoulders, that was the turning point. That's when the son started getting better. The tears that they shed and the crying for each other is what opened up the gates and brought a healing, brought a refuah shlema to this son from his epidemic, from his virus that he was going through. So this story happened 180, 200 years ago, but it's also true for us. Maybe we're not on such a level, and even if we are on such a level, to tear down the gates and bring salvation and redemption and healing to people, maybe we're not such big tzaddikim and tzaddikot. But at the end of the day, we still can cry. We can cry for each other. We can cry for all the Jews all over the world that are suffering and have lost people. We can cry for all the world, for also non-Jews alike who are going through difficult times during this corona. And who knows, we have no idea what our tears and our crying might do in Shamayim for other people. So it's not something that can be forced, of course, but it's good to take a moment and think about what's going on. And if some tears start dropping down, that's good. That's good. Only good can come of it, Be'ezrat Hashem. And of course, we're also crying tonight for our 6 million brothers and sisters, for the 6 million who were murdered in the Shoah. It's very special. I want to sing with you one more song without the guitar because the music doesn't sound too well. This is a song, we daven for the day that Hashem will come and wipe away all of our tears, the tears that we've been shedding in the past few weeks and in our entire lives. So this song is from a pasuk. It says, Umacha Hashem dima me'al kol panim. Okay, Hashem should wipe away tears from all faces. This was actually a song that Reb Shlomo Carlebach, when he was giving a concert in England, and he found out that his father, Rav Naftali, was niftar, that he passed away. So this is a song that came down to him at the moment, that one day Hashem will wipe away our tears. So we'll sing this one time, and we should merit that Hashem will wipe away our tears and the tears of the 6 million. Umacha, umacha, umacha Hashem, Oy dima, dima, oy mei al kol panim, umacha, umacha, umacha Hashem. Oy dima, dima, oy mei al kol panim, umacha, umacha. Umacha Hashem. Oidima, oidima, oy me al kol panim. Dididai-dam, ai-dai-dai-dam. Diddy-die-die-da-die-da-dum. Diddy-da-dum, ai-da-da-dee-da-dum. Diddy-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. So we should all be there together for that day when Hashem erases all of our tears, all of your tears, Debbie, all of your tears, Malka Gavriel, all of our tears of all lost ones and the 6 million. And like I said before, the learning is the Ilui Neshama for the soul of the 6 million. Welcome Shaul, welcome Steve and Marianne, Yoshua, and Natan. Good to see you all. Everybody sees the source sheet on the page, on the desktop? Okay, great. So we're jumping in. It's very fitting that we're learning now Tzaraat Mitzora, Parsha Tzaraat Mitzora, because in these Parshiot, okay, the word badad is mentioned, that a Jewish person might have to spend a decent amount of their life, of their time, sitting all alone, without anybody else. Michutz v'machaneh. Okay, in our parsha of Tzaraat Mitzora, it speaks about someone who comes down with this heavenly, spiritually disease called Tzaraat, the spiritual leprosy, for lack of a better word. And if they do have this leprosy, if they do have this Tzaraat, the Kohen tells them that they have to stay alone, badad. You might have heard this word in the past few weeks in the news, because being in isolation from Corona is called bidud, to be alone. So, and that's where our parsha is holding. So I want to jump into our parsha. Okay, again, it's two parashot together, together, Tzaraat and Mitzora. And it's very interesting because the first few psukim of Parashat Tzaraat speak about happy times, a woman giving birth and a baby, and the different halachot, the different laws that apply to this happy mother, depending on if she gave birth to a girl, if she gave birth to a boy, and so on. The bris is mentioned as well, of course. But right after that, the main chunk of Parashat Tzaraat, and basically all of Parashat Mitzora, is taken up by all the descriptions about a person who comes down with something which looks like some kind of eczema or skin disease or leprosy, and they're not sure what it is. And the Kohen, they have to be seen by the Kohen, by the priest, and they're able to identify if what they have is some skin disease, and they have to go to, they have psoriasis or eczema, whatever it is, lo aleinu, and they have to go to a skin doctor, or it's a heavenly disease, and it's a sign from Hashem about something. Okay? So again, the main part of Parashat Tzaraat and Mitzora are taken up with all the descriptions and how exactly the different skin blemishes and the different colors and shades and the size and all these different things, whether it appears on a person's body, on their skin, or on their clothing, on the walls of their house, how it's identified and what is done, and how at the end of this whole process, they have to bring korbanot, offerings to Hashem, and the different purification process. And the question I'd like to ask, and hopefully we'll see a very, very beautiful thing, which also has to do with the Shoah, with the Holocaust, with our 6 million brothers and sisters. The question is, what in the world do the two of these things have to do with each other? Why did Hashem choose to juxtapose right on the back, right next to these beautiful psukim that talk about a woman giving birth, okay, and all the different halachot that apply to her, and korbanot, and so on. Why, right after that, does the Torah seem to take a sharp end into a very not so good place and speak about an unwanted scenario in which somebody has tzaraat? And as many of us know, a person would get tzaraat, would get this heavenly spiritual leprosy, because for a number of reasons. It could be for lashon hara, for slander, for speaking bad about somebody else. Okay, it could be for avodah zarah. The Gemara describes a number of reasons why a person could get tzaraat. So why in the world did Hashem choose to put this whole episode of tzaraat, all the descriptions about tzaraat, right next to the stories of birth and the halachot which apply to a woman giving birth? That's a question I'd like to propose and take it from there as we jump into the psukim, into the sources. Before I continue, is there anything anybody wants to say or ask? You can unmute yourself if you'd like to, of course. No? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can only see part of the paper.
You can only see part of the paper, right? Can you see the
Is that
top
okay?
part?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'll scroll down as we
Okay,
get.
thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Okay, so we're jumping in, guys. We're jumping into, this is from Parashat Metzorah, the second parsha of this parsha of the week, of Tazria Metzorah. And this is a pasuk which opens a description about what happens if your house gets tzaraat, what looks like tzaraat. We said there are three ways in which a person can get this heavenly disease. Okay, either on their skin, on their clothing, or on the walls of their house. So the opening pasuk, the opening passage, in describing what happens if a person gets tzaraat on the walls of their house, okay, it's the top of the page here, it's number 1. The Hashem says, Ki tavo'u el eretz Knan asher ani noten lachem le'achuza v'natati nega tzarat bevet eretz achuzatchem. So Hashem says, when you come to the land of Canaan, which I am giving to you as an inheritance, I will give the nega tzarat, this blemish of tzarat, in the house of your of where you dwell. Basically, Hashem is telling us, when you come to Israel, your houses will get tzaraat, will get this heavenly disease, which sounds a little crazy, because what is Hashem telling us? That when we come to Israel, and after the wars and every tribe settles down, then our walls are going to be stricken with this crazy eczema, with this tzaraat all over the place? Is that what he's telling us? Or when the pasuk says, when you come to the land, and it might happen that I give tzaraat in your house, this is what should be done. Like, what is the Torah trying to tell us? Is this a desired situation? It doesn't sound like it. Like, why doesn't the pasuk say, when you come to the land of Israel, I'll help you grow trees and flowers, okay? I'll help you build your house and so on. Why doesn't it say that? The pasuk seems to be saying something which is unwanted, which is undesirable. Okay, the pasuk, like, what kind of good news is this? That when we come to Israel and we settle down in our homes, they'll be stricken with tzaraat? Is that what the pasuk is telling us? Okay, like, okay, that's the second question I'd like to try to address and answer. Again, the first question, why the connection between birth and tzaraat? The second question that we just saw now is, why in the world would Hashem tell us this? That he's going to give it to us. He's going to give us tzaraat. I'm sure some of you have learned mefarshim, different commentaries about this, about what exactly is going on here. Okay, we'll see a few in just a moment. Okay, before we see that, I just want to enhance the question and make it a little stronger, and we're going to jump into the midrash for that. To the midrash Vayikra Rabbah, that's a number 2. Okay, number 2 here on the sheet. So the midrash said, and this is my loose translation of the midrash, so please blame me for any mistakes, not the midrash. Okay, the midrash says, I'm going to read it now in my words from the Hebrew. Mashal lematrona shenichnasa letoch paltin shel melech. The midrash, in describing, okay, this whole scenario of tzaraat, not only tzaraat in the homes, but Tzaraat in general, in trying to give us an idea of what is going on, what's the deal with Tzaraat, and why. So the Midrash gives a metaphor, okay, a mashal. The Midrash says this is similar to a very distinguished, honorable lady. There are many stories in the Gemara and the Midrash about a matrona or a matronita, an honorable, distinguished lady who visited the different sages. Some of these stories are real and some are metaphors, like in our case. So this is similar to this very honorable, distinguished lady who entered the palace of a king, who was visiting a king in the palace. But as she walked in to his palace, to the fortress, whatever it was, she saw these straps. Okay, the straps that she saw, the commentaries in the Midrash explain, the Matnot Keuna explains that what the story at this point means is this very honorable, distinguished lady was a guest of the king. And she walked in, and as soon as she walked in, she saw this somewhat violent piece of material, or a few. She saw these straps, belts, okay, rods, and so on. It looked like a torture room almost. And she was somewhat frightened by this. I'm not sure if any of you guys have been in Akko. I'm sure some of you have, maybe all of you. But if you go into the old city of Akko, through the gate that's called the sea gate, Shar Hayam. So if you go through that gate, right when you enter the gate, you'll see right in front of you this huge beam up top as you enter the gate. And that's a huge beam that this Muslim ruler who was called El Jazar, who ruled towards in the 18th century in Akko, that was this huge beam, which is still there nowadays in Akko, on which 200 years ago, over 200 years ago, he would hang people that would get punished. So you would see that right as you entered the gates of Akko, and that was a message to anyone who was entering Akko: you got to keep to the rules and do exactly what you're told. And if not, you're going to be strung up here by this beam and get punished, get flogged, get beaten, and so on. You can see this beam in Akko till today. So this is what's happening in the story as well, in the Midrash. Okay, she walks in, she sees this device on which to punish people, and she's frightened. She's scared. So the king said to her, don't be afraid. This is for the servants. La'avadim ve'lashfachot. These are for this is for the help, okay? For the slaves. Aval at, but you, this is not for you. Don't even pay attention to that. At le'echol ve'lishtot ve'lismoach. Your goal, okay? You're not going there, don't worry. You came here to have a good party. You can eat, you can drink, and you can rejoice. Okay, don't worry about that at all. That was a metaphor. The Midrash says, so too, when the Jewish people heard this whole story about Tzaraat, about these blemishes, and they can appear in your skin in these very gross and disgusting colors and different sizes, and on your clothes, on your houses, they were scared, they were afraid. Moshe said to them, don't be afraid. These are for the nations of the world. But you can go eat and drink and rejoice, like in the metaphor in the story. Okay, as it says, Rabim machovim larasha v'aboteach ba'Hashem chesed yisomevanu. As it says in the book of Tehillim, the book of Psalms, many are the pains of the wicked, but as for him who trusts in Hashem, kindness will encompass him. Okay, so this is a somewhat odd medrash. Okay, because first of all, why is Tzaraat a reason for a party for the Jewish people? Why should we have a good time if we get Tzaraat? Why should we eat, rejoice, drink, and be merry? Okay? And what does it mean when it says that when Moshe says to them in the Medrash, don't be afraid, this is for the nations of the world. The nations of the world don't get Tzaraat. They don't get this heavenly leprosy. This is only something that Jewish people get or got back then. So what does that mean in the Medrash? That this is for the rest of the world, but for you, you can eat and rejoice and drink, like in the metaphor, like that distinguished, honorable lady. Okay, so what's going on there? So now we have a third question. First of all, why did Hashem combine Tzaraat with birth? Second of all, okay, why does Hashem describe that when we come to Israel, our homes will be inflicted with Tzaraat? Okay, and third of all, why is Tzaraat a reason to have a wild, crazy party? That's what the Medrash is saying. Okay, it doesn't seem like it. If you read the Psukim, it seems like a very sad episode and very severe and very strict. very not happy, very not rejoiceful. So again, why in the reason is the Tzaraat seem to be such a happy occasion, seemingly? Okay, I'm jumping down. If anybody wants to ask or say something in the meantime, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so we're gonna start with the Ramban with Nachmanides, okay, and see what he says first of all about Tzaraat, and then we're gonna get to a very special Rebbe. You can see him already at number 4. There are people here that have, I know people here in the group that have personal connections to him and to his descendants. Okay, those of you know what I'm talking about. We'll see him in just a moment, and it's very special also to see his Dvar Torah, his idea on Yom HaShoah, on the day of the Holocaust. We'll get to him in just a moment, but we're going to start with the Ramban, with the good old Nachmanides. Okay, so the Ramban in describing Tzaraat of the clothes especially, so he writes, he says, okay, ze einenu bateva klal. You can see it here in English. This is an unnatural phenomena. This is not normal. This is not a medical, a physiological situation that a person might have when they get tzaraat. Okay, this Torah version, this Torah leprosy, this heavenly leprosy. V'chen nigeha batim. So too, if your house gets blemishes, this is also surreal. It's not normal. It's not natural. Okay, aval bihiyot Yisrael shlemim laHashem, yeh ruach Hashem alehem tamid, lehamid gufam ubigdehem ubatehem b'mareh tov. But since, now the Ramban starts to explain, since Am Yisrael, since the Jewish people are one for or with Hashem, the word in Hebrew is shlemim laHashem, for Hashem. So it's for with Hashem. We'll get to that in a moment. So therefore, and the spirit of Hashem is always upon them, to keep their bodies and clothing and houses in good appearance. Since we are in a team, we're one unit with God, okay, therefore we have to also dress appropriately, not only outside with our physical clothing, but also inside with our spiritual clothing, with our souls, with our nishamot, okay? וכאשר יקרה באחד מהם חטא ועוון, יתהווה כיעור בבשרו או בבגדו או בביתו. When something not good spiritually happens to us inside, when we sin, when we mess up, when we put a little schmutz, a little dirt on our souls, on our nishamot, that spiritual dirt is expressed by the tzaraat, by the dirt, the blemishes on our skin, or our clothing, or our homes. Okay, the tzaraat is an external expression of an internal situation. If I am spiritually dirty inside, I will see it on my skin outside. Okay? Leharot ki Hashem sar me'alav. The Ramban says this is to show a person that Hashem has moved away from you. Okay? Which means that you have to get your act together. There's some self-reflection, introspection that you have to do. Okay? So I can ask you now, is that a bad thing? Based on what the Ramban says, is tzaraat a bad thing then? Is having these blemishes on your skin a bad thing, or on your clothes or your wall a bad thing? One could say, externally, superficially, yeah, it's a horrible thing. Yeah, I look like Freddy Krueger. I have all my skin is horrific. Okay, and my clothes, I can't go outside in public. So from a very external, somewhat childish perspective, that's true. Tzaraat is a bad thing. But is having a headache because you're dehydrated a bad thing? And once you have the headache, you realize, oh man, I haven't been drinking for the past 3 hours. I should get a drink. The headache is a good thing. The headache is the body telling you, Asher, get your act together and go get a drink of water. So the headache is a beautiful thing, because that's an indication that I have to take action and get a drink of water. Tzaraat is the same exact thing, spiritually speaking. Tzaraat is Hashem's message to us, is an indication that we have got to stop, okay, take a moment, catch our breath, and figure out what's going on with ourselves. Because apparently we have not been doing what Hashem wants of us. And we have strayed off the path of what Hashem, desires us to do. So again, in that perspective, which is a true, real perspective, okay, if a headache because I'm dehydrated, or a fever because my body has some other issue, They are very good things. They are very good symptoms. And to look at them as bad things is very shallow and very childish. The same way Tzaraat. Tzaraat is a beautiful thing. It's Hashem telling us, I'm making your skin just a little bit dirty. And the commentaries and the Gemara explain this. If a person would then do tshuva and get their act together, poof, okay, the Tzaraat would go away and he would heal. Okay, so it's a beautiful thing that Hashem is telling us, that there's something going on with us that's not good, and we got to figure it out and get our spiritual neshama, okay, back on track. So, and that's why, guys, that's why, based on what the Ramban says, without even continuing, this is why, this is a reason for a party. Okay, what the Midrash says, that Tzaraat, okay, Tzaraat is a reason to eat, to drink, and rejoice. That's exactly true, okay? Because Tzaraat shows me, Tzaraat would show a Jew that Hashem cares. Hashem cares about you. One of the most saddest things in a relationship with a spouse, with a good friend, with a family member, is that you might do something that hurts their feelings, but they have given up on you. They don't care, so they won't even tell you. They'll just ignore you. That's one of the saddest things ever. One of the most beautiful things in a relationship is when the person that you're connected to and have a close relationship to tells you what it is that you're doing that's wrong, or indicates or gives you signs, okay, hints that you're doing something hurtful to them. That's a very beautiful thing, because what that's an expression of care. That's an expression that you're close, and what you do affects each other. So Tzaraat is the most beautiful thing in the world, and it's a reason to rejoice, because it's an indication. It's a true indication that Hashem mamish cares. If Hashem didn't care about us, He wouldn't give us Tzaraat. If Hashem, God forbid, if God forbid, didn't care about us, so okay, the guy's eating treif, the guy's speaking lashon hara nonstop, he can go to Gehenna. I don't care about him, God forbid. But Hashem cares about us. Hashem cares about our behavior, about our souls, which are essentially part of Him. So He gives us Tzaraat, telling us, Asher, keep your mouth shut. Stop speaking lashon hara. Okay, get your act together, and that's a beautiful thing, because then I can tell myself, wow, what I do makes a difference for good and for not good. So Hashem mamish cares about me. Look, He's sending me signs on my skin. That's unbelievable. We should have a party. We should have a huge kiddush in the shul, okay, with lots of l'chaim and lots of good food. So that's exactly what the Midrash is saying. Okay, it's a reason for a party. If you're able to get past the superficial level of what Tzaraat looks like, then it's all good. It's mamish all good. Okay, and what the Ramban says, what he continues to say, you can read it in Hebrew or English, is, of course, I can only hear from someone that I'm close to that I am misbehaving or doing something that's not good if I am in the right frame of mind. If I am tired, if I am disheveled, if I'm angry or worried about whatever it is that's going on in my life, it's very hard to hear from somebody else that I'm causing them problems as well. That's just like more issues on my plate, which is already full of many other issues. So the Ramban says so sweetly and so beautifully that Tzaraat will only happen, this will only happen in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, because only in Israel can a Jewish person really be in the right frame of mind and settled. Outside of Israel, there are so many physical distractions and spiritual distractions. It's hard to just catch your spiritual breath. So if Hashem would send us the signs, that Tzaraat, not in Israel, I wouldn't have the patience and the right frame of mind, and I wouldn't have any energy to even pay attention to that. I'd be so caught up in so many other things. Okay, so Hashem will only send it to the house or the clothing, okay, and probably also the skin. The Ramban says only in Eretz Yisrael, because only in Eretz Yisrael, where we're home with Hashem, am I able to listen and pick up on the signs and hopefully get on a better track. Okay. Anybody want to add anything or ask anything? No one yet? Okay. So, of course, in a relationship, you have to be careful not to overdo that, not to keep on saying, well, you did this that bothered me and that bothered me, and keep heaping on the other person lots of tzaraat, filling up their skin and clothing. That's the other extreme, okay? But if it's within the sweet relationship and there's a good connection and there's care for each other, so there's always room, and there should be some room for some tzaraat, for sharing with the other how something that their behavior, something that they're doing is hurtful and is bothering. And so again, therefore, out of tzaraat, I can come closer to Hashem, and I can change my life. And that's why I'm gonna now answer very briefly the first question that I proposed a few minutes ago. Why did Hashem choose to put the whole episode of tzaraat smack next to the whole episode in beautiful descriptions about birth and the korbanot about birth and what happens to a happy mother who gives birth? Because on the real true level, not on this vort level, on a real true level, tzaraat is a chance to be reborn again. Tzaraat is your second chance for birth. You can change your life, okay? And that's what Hashem is telling us. There's the first regular natural birth that happens after 9 months, more or less. And here are the laws. This is what the happy mother has to do. These are the korbanot. And now I'm going to show you another scenario. Here's another description of another birth that you guys might go through. You guys and girls might go through in your lives if I send you tzaraat. If I send you tzaraat, take note of it, do introspection, itbonenut, reflect on yourselves, and you can totally change yourself and be reborn again, so to speak. I know that has sometimes negative connotations, that phrase of this other religion, so it's hard also for me sometimes to push that on the side, but this is really what's going on here. Tzaraat is a chance for a rebirth, to change ourselves and get back to our true selves, to Hashem. And that's possibly one of the reasons why tzaraat is right next to the physical birth that happens in the beginning of Parashat Tazria. We have the physical birth, but that's not the end. There are many opportunities, okay, to once again have a spiritual birth and basically be new human beings if we change ourselves. Okay, I want to take it now, and if anybody wants to say anything, you're more than welcome to. Sorry, I want to take it now to the next level and see a beautiful idea, which I wasn't able to get, I'm sorry, into English from the Eish Kodesh, okay? Before I say that, I just want to explain what the question that I mentioned before in the Midrash, that Moshe told Am Yisrael that this tzaraat is a reason for you to rejoice, but for the nations of the world, okay, it's not. Meaning, if you choose to be like nations of the world, in the sense, okay, that the relationship that you have with God is not intimate, is not close, and you're just following the latest fashion, the latest modern phase that's going on, the latest fad, whatever it is, and you're just like rolling with the waves or letting the waves take you in whatever direction the world is taking you, umot ha'olam, okay, the nations of the world, and you're not trying to stay one with Hashem, you're not trying to listen to what Hashem wants of you, then tzaraat on your skin is horrible. It's disgusting. It's gross. What am I going to do about this? If you're not trying to get your spiritual act together and you're not trying to be a team with Hashem, then the severe case of eczema, of tzaraat, is horrendous. It's horrible. It's like being punished, like in the metaphor that the Midrash says, being beaten on some beam, on some lash. It really is a horrible thing. But if you're trying to be a teammate with Hashem, okay, then tzaraat again is a reason to rejoice, like we just explained. Okay, I'm going to take it one stage further, go a little deeper with this idea. This is from the Eish Kodesh. I'm sure either everybody here or most of you sitting here have probably heard about him. And again, like I mentioned before, some of you have a personal relationship with his relatives, with his descendants. So I'm not we could spend again all night just talking about the Eish Kodesh. Rabbi Klonimus Kalman Shapira from the village of Piasetzna And Steve and Marianne shared a personal story with me about a year ago that has to do with the current PSS and Rebbe. I'm just going to share just a few, just for like a minute or a minute and a half, just a few things. And if anybody here wants to add anything, you're obviously more than welcome. So the Eish Kodesh, holy fire, which can also be bought in English. I don't have it right here, which is why I only put the Hebrew version here on the page. But if any of you have the English version at home, you're welcome to open it up, okay, to number 4, to this Dvar Torah from Eish Kodesh. The Eish Kodesh, holy fire, as it's called, and it really is a collection of teachings, of Divrei Torah, of sermons that this very special Rebbe called Rebbe Klonim Kalman Shapira, okay, who again is one of the Hasidic Rebbes. He lived in a little town not too far away from Warsaw, okay, called Piaseczna. We're talking before the Holocaust, and he had a very, very, very beautiful, sweet community. He didn't have his Hasidim, his students, and again we're going to be very brief, but his students were not like your average student in the Hasidic or non-Hasidic world, that most of the students, most of the Hasidim might be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on. The just of his students, the majority of his Talmidim, were children and teenagers. Okay, if you would come to his shul, to his base medrash, if you would come to a tish that he would do, okay, when he would teach Torah, have l'chaim, sing songs, I guess they wouldn't have too many alcohol l'chaims if the kids were kids and teenagers, but that's something to think about actually. But most of his Talmidim, most of his Hasidim were children and teenagers. So there was the purity and the kedusha and the tmimut, the completeness, okay, and the pureness that children have, okay, before they become adults. And that energy, that kedusha, okay, was in his Beit Medrash. Okay, that purity. Some of the Rebbes would say that if a person wants to go to the mikveh to purify themselves and they can't find a mikveh, all they have to do then is get their children or their children and a bunch of the neighbors' children to stand in a circle around them, and then they can dunk in that mikveh. Children standing around you, okay, with their kedusha and purity are equivalent to going to a mikveh. So if you can't get to a mikveh like nowadays, get a bunch of kids, assuming they're from your family, or Zoom children maybe, and you can dunk in that. Meaning if you're surrounded by the kedusha, the purity of sweet children, of their clean neshamot, that basically has the same effect as a mikveh. So Reb Klonim Kalman of Piaseczna was a very sweet Rebbe. Hey, there are many stories about him. Of course, Shlomo has a famous story about him bumping into one of his students in the early 60s in Tel Aviv. That story is called The Holy Hunchback. If you haven't heard it, go to YouTube, listen to the story, The Holy Hunchback, Hagiben Kadosh. Very, very sweet story. And the Piaseczna Rebbe was he spoke eye to eye with his students. He didn't speak to them like a teacher speaking down, or in what might be perceived in a condescending way. He spoke to them eye to eye and very open, very sweet, very special. And he always encouraged his Talmidim, his students, to do good in the world, to do favors for each other, and to help each other out. When the Holocaust came to town, and even before the Germans invaded Poland, by that point he was caught in the ghetto in Warsaw, and he was caught there during the bombardment of the German forces, with many, many other Jews in the Warsaw ghetto. And to make a long and sad but very powerful and very uplifting on some level story very short, he was there in the 1940s, 1941, 1942. And during that time that he was there in the ghetto, he was a Rebbe, he was a teacher, okay? And he did not say, well, times are rough, times are tough, and forget about it. Let me just focus on myself and my own pain. And he went through a lot of pain. His son was killed during the shelling of the Warsaw ghetto by the Germans. His son was injured by the bombing and eventually died from his wounds a few days later. Okay, his mother died in the ghetto. His daughter-in-law, okay, he went through a lot. And during that time, he continued nonstop to give his Talmidim, friends, people that came to listen to him, to try to give them hope and to try to find Hashem in the horrific times that they were going through. So his Divrei Torah are the sweetest of the sweet, because it's not a rabbi who lived after the Holocaust writing and saying, well, this is what I think, this is why this happened in the Holocaust, this is what God was telling us, this is ba-ba-bam. We have a lot of those as well. But this is a very sweet Rebbe who was experiencing the pain and the loss of many other Jews in the Holocaust, and he's trying to open up his heart to them and open up his heart to Hashem, and trying to figure out how to see the good. What is Hashem trying to tell us? How to give hope, how to give some light, okay, and sweetness to all these broken Jews surrounding him. So these Divrei Torah that he gave, he eventually wrote down. Many of them, most of them, he gave on Shabbat or on the Chag or on the holidays, and usually on Motzei Shabbat, as far as I know, he wrote down the Divrei Torah in his own. He wrote it down and saved it. And to make again a long story short, they were discovered after the war was over, after the Holocaust was over, okay, and they made their way to Israel, to his younger brother, who was already in Israel at the time, and eventually they were published, okay, and they were titled Eish Kodesh, Holy Fire, okay, because his Divrei Torah are really on fire. He was on fire, and if you read them, they touch a very, very deep place. On one hand, they're very sad, but on the second hand, they give a lot of inspiration, okay, from Reb Kolon's Kalm and the Piasetzner Rebbe. And I just want to end by saying, okay, again, you can find the book in English, Holy Fire, as well. His brother's grandson, Reb Kalman Menachem, is the current Piasetzner Rebbe. He has the beautiful shul, and Steve and Marianne and my mother, who's here as well, and perhaps other people know him personally. He's the current Piasetzner Rebbe. His shul in Ramat Beit Shemesh is called Eish Kodesh, after his great uncle, the first Piasetzner Rebbe. Okay, and he's a very special Rebbe. He behaves, from the few times that I've seen him, he behaves very similar to his great uncle, the first Piasetzner Rebbe. Okay, so we're jumping in. Anybody want to say something? No. Okay, we're jumping in to the Torah that he gave. This is Parashat Mitzorah in 1940, 5,700. Okay, Tafshin. Okay, so he talks about the pasuk that we just saw, and he says, "Ki tavo el eretz Knan," the pasuk that we saw. And I asked in the beginning, what this is horrible news that Hashem is telling us. What, when we come to the land, our walls are going to get tzaraat? Why? That's not a good thing. Hashem saying, "I will give nega tzaraat," I will give this blemish in the walls of your house. It doesn't sound too good. So the Rebbe in Eish Kodesh here brings Rashi, okay, and Rashi says, "Besorai lachem." This is good news, actually. Rashi brings a medrash that says that the non-Jews living in Israel, before the Jews entered Israel with Yoshua ben Nun, they heard about the Israelites' up-and-coming invasion of the land of Canaan, of the land of Canaan, and so they took a lot of their treasures and hid them in the walls of their houses. They took their gold, their diamonds, they made holes in their houses, and they hid their treasures in the walls, so when the Jews invaded Canaan, invaded Israel, they wouldn't find their treasures. And so, therefore, Hashem is saying in the pasuk, when you come to Israel, to the land of Canaan, I am going to put tzaraat on your walls. And as a result of that, as the Torah says, you're going to have to take apart the stones of your house. And what's going to happen when you take apart the stones of the house? Well, you're going to discover the treasures that were hidden there before you entered Eretz Yisrael, before you entered Israel. And in that regard, it's a positive thing, of course. Okay, it's an indication on the walls where to find the hidden treasure. It's a beautiful treasure map. So that's what Rashi says. So then when a person would take apart the stones of their house, as the Torah describes, which is what you have to do if your walls have tzaraat, they would find that hidden treasure. So the Rebbe asks, I'm just going to read it out into English from the Hebrew. Okay, v'navin now, we should try to please understand, im ken, if so, why did Hashem say that the house has to be closed for 7 days? there are different stages in identifying the tzaraat, okay? And one of the stages is that the house has to be closed and not be used and not be entered for 7 days when the tzaraat is identified on the walls, okay? But the Rebbe asks, if it's a good situation, if there's hidden treasure there, why go through this whole like shtick almost of treating the house as if it's bad, as if it's tameh, and only afterwards chiltzu et avanim, and only afterwards you would also then take the stones off. Why go through this whole negative experience with your house if it's basically a treasure map on the wall? Okay, hakevan shenira hanega yida shekan matmon. The moment the Jews, when they entered Israel, saw the tzaraat on the walls of their house, so they'll know, oh, there's a treasure, there it is. Why'd they have to go through this whole undesirable experience of taking apart the stones and their house being off limits if there's a treasure there? Just, jump ahead and take apart the house and you get the treasure. As the Ramban, like we just saw, brings, and as is brought in the books of my father, my teacher, okay, Reb Eli Melech. His father's name was Reb Eli Melech, and he mentions also his father in his own books mentions this. Shenig'ei batim ubgadim. I'm on the second line, on the second paragraph, that the blemishes on the clothing and on the house, which are not natural, like the Ramban says, they are only for the good of Am Yisrael, to discover the treasures. So why does the Torah say that the house first is impure for 7 days, and only after that you'll take apart the stones? We saw from the Ramban, okay, that it's good tzaraat. It helps us discover not only, like back then, the treasures hidden in the walls, it helps us discover our own treasures inside, our own neshama, all the beautiful gems and diamonds that we have to clean in our own soul. So the Rebbe again is asking, why go through this whole process of making the house impure, taking apart the stones, and it's all good. So just take it apart from the very beginning. So the Rebbe says very sweetly, he says, "V'hineh b'chavanat haTorah v'mitzvotea en lanu hasaga." He starts off by saying, first of all, I mamish have no idea. I don't know at all why Hashem told us to do that. Okay, we cannot really we can't really attempt to understand why Hashem, who is, was, and will be, and is beyond time and any limitations, why he would ask us to really do anything. It's beyond us. Our limited mind cannot really understand this unlimited, infinite being, Hashem. So we really have no idea. Okay, this is a real sweet, beautiful disclaimer for what he's about to say. Aval, masha meramez lanu, but the Torah is hinting to us, efshar, possibly, this is what the Torah is telling us, that we know and we believe that everything that Hashem does to us, even God forbid when he beats us, kshechas v'chalila malkeh otanu, hakol letovai, it's all for good. We know this, that whatever Hashem does for us is for the good, okay? The person that missed the Titanic, perhaps they knew that, and they only found it out a little while later that it was for the good. Okay, we know that everything not so good that happens to us is all for the good. Aval, however, kisheroim ka'et, when we see now, this is 1940 in the Warsaw Ghetto, when we see now, shelo b'yisurei haguf levad malkeh otanu, Hashem is beating us not only physically, it's not only our physical bodies that are suffering here in the ghetto, רק גם בדברים שחס וחלילה מרחיקים הם אותנו ממנו יתברך. We are also being beaten with things that distance us from Hashem. Meaning, he seems to also be beating our souls. What do I mean? The Rebbe says, אין חדר לתינוקות של בית רבן. There's no school for kids. ולא ישיבה. There's no yeshiva. לא בית המדרש להתפלל בציבור. There's no shul, there's no yeshiva to go daven. Velo mikveh, and there's no mikveh. The women and men cannot go to a mikveh. V'chadome, and everything similar. So we're being beaten, our souls are being beaten. Not only our bodies are we suffering, we can't daven properly. We can't get close to Hashem. We can't learn. We can't keep what Hashem wants of us. So he's beating not only our bodies, he's beating our souls. Az chas v'chalila, So then, God forbid, safek chashash ole bekirbenu. This doubt might arise in our hearts. Ha'efshar shegam ata kavanato yitbarach latova. Wait a second. Is now whatever Hashem does, is it also for the good? I know that when Hashem makes me suffer, God forbid, and I physically suffer, I know it's all for the good, and He has a plan, and it's to help me. But now that my soul is suffering, I can't daven, the Rebbe is saying. There's no yeshiva, there's no school, nobody can go to the mikveh, it's hard to get kosher food. So wait a second, is that also for the good? If it's for the good, the Rebbe says, if it was for a good purpose, so He should inflict us, He should beat us with things that will bring us close to Him. He shouldn't make us suffer in a way that we can't learn Torah, we can't daven, and God forbid the way it's going. The Rebbe is saying almost all the Torah. It's getting impossible to keep almost anything here in the ghetto. Could this be suffering that Hashem is doing to us because He wants to get rid of us, God forbid, and not because He wants to help us come closer to Him, and not for a good reason? That's what I might say to myself, because my body's not only suffering, my soul is suffering as well. So that doesn't make sense. If Hashem wants me to bring close to Him, why would He make my neshama suffer? When I was reading this and learning this the other day, it's incomparable, of course. We can't compare it at all. But I just was thinking on a very slight comparison, which is not a comparison, about nowadays. Nowadays are also difficult times. Okay, totally uncomparable to what the Rebbe was going through. But we have nowadays a little taste. We have like the tip of an iceberg of what the Rebbe was experiencing, of a little bit of suffering, of not being able to do all these different things. Okay, so the Rebbe tells us, Lachen ro'im b'Torah, okay, Lachen ro'im b'Torah, the Torah tells us, Shehagam shenega habatim tme'a u'mitama ita, u'mikol makom asa ba Hashem shlichut tova letovat Yisrael. So Hashem is telling us, is showing us in the Torah, that even though the houses were inflicted, and the house becomes tameh, and if anything is in the house at that time, that would also become tameh, that would also become impure from this tzaraat. Okay, it's a bad situation. It's not good. It's not ideal. Umikol makom, but nonetheless, Hashem was doing that to deliver a message to us, to find the treasures, the physical treasures in the walls, or the spiritual treasures in our souls. Okay. Nonetheless, it's going to have a bad start. The Rebbe is saying Hashem wants us to know that just because He's giving us something good doesn't mean that the beginning of it has to feel good and taste good. Okay? The beginning might feel horrible. The beginning might feel like we're being distant from Hashem. The beginning might feel like suffering. Okay? But at the end of the day, it is for the good. And that's why the Rebbe is saying a person, when they see something bad, they shouldn't say, nega nirali. This is bad. They have to say, and this is what it says in the Torah, kin nega nirali. This looks very bad. This looks horrible. And we can only imagine what the Rebbe is thinking of when he's saying this. Okay? That even a Talmid Chacham, even a righteous person who knows that there's suffering going on, that it's horrible, they should also try to say, kin nega, this looks bad. This is not bad, objectively, it just looks bad. Okay? Because at the end of the day, it is very good. And the Rebbe ends by saying, these blemishes, this tzaraat, okay, הנגעים היינו עניין הרע בהחלט הוא אך להם שאינם ביכולת להפוך הרע לטוב. אבל אתם, I'm sorry, this is the next, this is already from his father. I have a typo here on the page. The Rebbe ends by saying, באמת טובה היא לישראל אשר יטיב השם עמנו. This is very good for Am Yisrael. Just like the Tzaraat and the homes when they entered Israel seemed horrible, but it had hidden treasures, it was for a good purpose, so too the Rebbe is saying to his friends and his students that whatever we're going through now, there's some good at the end of it, and Hashem will do good for us. Asher yativ Hashem imanu. So, who knows what did the goodness happen yet that the Rebbe was referring to that Hashem did for us during or after the Holocaust? I, mamish, have no idea. Who knows? Okay, but the Rebbe nonetheless is still trying to tell us. And remember, he wasn't someone who was speaking from above to everybody else. He was suffering himself. He lost members, and he himself was killed in the Holocaust at the end. But to the very last moment, he held on, and he said, just like in our parsha, it looks very bad, the Tzaraat on the homes. You're surrounded in your home by blemishes, by suffering, but nonetheless, there's a treasure there. There's something good at the end of it. Okay? And I just want to see, for the end of this, before we listen, if anybody wants to add or say anything, okay, his father, his Abba, Rav Elimelech, okay, writes in his book, he mentioned before, the Piasetzer Rebbe mentioned before how he saw similar things mentioned in his father's book. So this might have been what he was referring to, I'm not sure. But this is from his father's Sefer, Divrei Elimelech. Okay, the Piasetzer Rebbe's father. And he writes there, okay, I put it twice on the page here, Hanegaim hainu inyan hara be'echlet hu. Okay, if you just objectively look at the tzaraat, at the blemishes, it's a horrible, bad thing. Ach lahem she'einam biyachodet la'afoch hara letov. It's only bad if you can't turn this bad situation, this negative scenario, into good. Aval atem le'echol ve'lishtot ve'lismoch. But you, Am Yisrael, okay, people that are trying, Yisrael means, it's two words, Yashar El, straight with God. That's what Yisrael means. We're always trying to be straight on the same page with Hashem. But you, Tzaraat is a reason to rejoice, like we saw before. Okay, you can turn that into an awesome, beautiful thing. Ki gam hanegaim shenitan lachem uletovatchem. Rabbi Elimelech is saying, also these blemishes that are given to you are for your good. Okay? B'kedei shetavchu hara letov v'hanega leoneg al yedei avodatchem. You have the ability to turn bad into good. To turn the nega, if you look in the Hebrew word for nega, it's nun gimel ayin. You can turn that word, that blemish, the nega, into oneg. Oneg is pleasure. Same exact letters, just backwards. Ayin, gimel, the ayin, nun gimel. Okay? The nega, the blemish, can become an oneg if you twist it. Meaning, if you look backwards, if you look back at the blemish, at the oneg, and reflect upon it, it can bring you so much pleasure in the world because you realize that Hashem is trying to tell you something. And whatever Hashem is trying to tell you, whatever Hashem is trying to tell us, okay, it's all for a good reason, and it's all to help us become better, much, much better people. I just want to say, the Rebbe, the Piasetzer Rebbe, said this in the years of the Holocaust, in the 40s, in the early 40s, and he moved up to Shamayim. He took off, okay, and his father said similar things before him. And also nowadays, we're living in the past month or so, the past month and a half, with the whole Corona Mishugas going on. We're also living in a time of a nega, of a blemish, and an undesirable.
Did everyone else lose Rav Asher as well?
Yes, I can't hear him.
Did everyone else lose Rav Asher as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll see what's going on. All right, one second, I'll message him.
Okay. Sorry about that. The Shabbos clock went Terminator style. So I just want to end. I'm refocusing back on what the Rebbe was saying. And the Tzaraat, we saw, just to sum it up, we saw very beautifully that first of all, Tzaraat, if you get past the first external expression of it, Tzaraat is a beautiful thing. When someone that's close to us tells us that we've been hurting their feelings, we're doing something unpleasant to them, once we get past our own ego and our own pride and our own defense systems, it's the most beautiful thing in the world, because it means that that person, that individual cares about us and they care about their relationship with us. And that's exactly what Tzaraat is. And even though nowadays we don't have Tzaraat, we're going through something somewhat similar, that we also have to be alone. Like somebody who would get Tzaraat would have to be alone. So it's also a time, okay, now that we're alone, badad, bidud, it's a time that we can do hitbodedut, okay, or hitbonenut. We can do self-introspection and try to make sense of our lives, and hopefully we can come out better people than we were before this whole Corona Mishugas started. That's the hope. Cheshbon nefesh, to do a cheshbon of the soul. Again, we have no idea what is Hashem trying to tell us with the Corona. We all we can do is try to listen and try to make some sense. But what for sure is, we can always try to become better people. That's always what Hashem is trying to tell us, regardless of the specifics at any given time. It's always Him trying to tell us to improve, okay, and come closer and closer to our own neshamas, to our own neshamot. So that we can do through a very simple cheshbon nefesh, what's called, okay, calculating our souls, figuring out where we're at. And we have a lot of time now. Many of us are not working like normally. We're at home most of the time. There's a lot of time to think about our lives. They say about Rabbi Zusha, one of the students of Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli was in his home for a few nights, slept there, and he heard Rabbi Zusha sitting on his bed before he was going to sleep. And he heard him speaking to Hashem and saying, Hashem, I just did a cheshbon nefesh. I just calculated and took spiritual inventory of myself, and I realized it's a bad scene. I really have to get my act together and improve. Okay? And I'm writing down in this little notepad that I have, Reb Zusha was saying, I'm writing down that tomorrow I'm going to be a better person, and I'm going to do tshuva and really do what's right. And I know, Hashem, that also last night I told you the same exact thing, and I messed up today, but I promised you tomorrow I'm going to change and be much better. And I know I also told you that 2 nights ago, that the next day I'm going to be, but this time I really, really mean it. To make a long, sweet story short, this guy stayed with him for a few nights, and every night he heard Reb Zusha saying the same thing. That even though today wasn't so good, and I told you yesterday that today I would be better, I'm telling you the same thing today, that tomorrow I hope is better. And tomorrow, I hope that I'm a better person. So don't give up, okay? There's a lot of time that we have for self-introspection and thinking about ourselves. And remember, like the Rebbe said, guys, if the Piasetza Rebbe and the horrors that he was going through in the Warsaw Ghetto and all the suffering and pain that our brothers and sisters, which we cannot really imagine. I know Shaul sitting here has personal experience and pain with your mother, Shaul. This learning is also for her neshama, for her soul of your mother, Shaul. It's really hard to imagine what they went through. I mean, you can read stories and listen, but to really, I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. But all I'm saying is, if the Rebbe who was going through this was able to hang on to some hope and know that, as crazy as it is, Hashem has something good for us, so almost the more so. Okay, Kal v'chomer alachat kama v'kama. If the Rebbe could do that in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1940, 41, and 42, so almost the more so we can do that in our lives and with what we're going through. And Hashem has plans for us. Just want to end with one song. Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kikedem. Okay, we daven to Hashem to return back the good old days and renew them like before. But we're not asking Hashem to renew them chadesh yameinu as they were before, but like they were before. Not exactly. Kimo, like Osem ketchup, Kimo Heinz is like Heinz. Chadesh yameinu kikedem. Make our days back like how they used to be, but not the same Asher that I was before this whole Corona Mishugas. I don't want to be the same person. I want life to go back to normal, but not mamish back to normal. I want to be a different person. I want to be a better person. So it's Chadesh Yameinu, but not for them to be as Kedem, as they were before, but similar to, and much, much better. So Hashivenu Hashem.
But you want to say something, Steve?
Not yet.
You want to say something first, Steve?
Oh, no, after your song.
Oh, okay. Ay, la 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 la. Ay da 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 dee dum da da dee da dee dum. Ay da 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 dum. Ay 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 da 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 dum. Oh ay da 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 da. Ay 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 da dee dum. Ay da 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 dum. Hashivenu Hashem Shemele